everybody and welcome to our training video. Fake News Detectives, Developing People's Critical Literacy Skills. We're Elli and Paul from the NewsWise team here at the Guardian Foundation. NewsWise is a cross-curricular news literacy programme for 7 to 11-year-olds. We're run in partnership by the Guardian Foundation, the National Literacy Trust and the PSHE Association. We offer a fully planned suite of lessons with more than 100 resources, pupil workshops, a chance to hear from real journalists, as well as CPD for teachers. The whole project has been created by literacy, news and PSHE specialists. And now I'm going to hand over to Paul, who'll talk about the importance of developing people's critical literacy skills.
So first, let's think about why we want to take a critical approach to news and information in the primary classroom. You may have seen this picture being shared during the devastating hurricane that affected several states in the USA back in October 2024. If you put yourself in the place of those affected by the flooding, people who've lost homes, businesses, and perhaps even loved ones, how might you feel if you saw an image like this? Perhaps it would compound the fear and desperation you're already feeling. When considering that this picture was being shared by some elected politicians, claiming that it shows how victims of the flood are not being helped, you might feel angered or even helpless. Perhaps it would inspire you to take action to help those affected by the floods or against those in power who are seemingly not doing enough to help. As you can see at the bottom of this page, the community notes points out that this was generated by AI. It's just one example of the type of mis- and disinformation that was shared in the days following Hurricane Helene. Fake news can make us think and act in ways we wouldn't normally do, and sometimes can put ourselves and others in danger. It can be shared in many different ways for many different reasons. Health disinformation, for example, is something we see regularly. For example, these suggestions here that Mpox is misdiagnosed shingles caused by the COVID vaccine, and we saw mocked up headlines claiming that the WHO is planning mega lockdowns. Conflict as well is a common place for mis- and disinformation. So images often get released claiming to show events that didn't actually happen or are happening related to the current conflict. Images that claim to show public figures in support of one side or the other are really common too. And these are always situations where tensions are quite high and can therefore have significant consequences. We also might see the problem of eroding trust in government. We've seen this with the example of the AI-generated child in the USA that we just talked about, but this also happens in the UK as well. This false quote here attributed to the Mayor of London and fake article suggesting that the Chancellor is promoting an online investment scheme are a couple of really recent examples. And election disinformation. 2024, as you may remember, was a really busy year for elections across the world. And misleading or outright false information was still being shared, even related to those elections that have already happened. And we should also mention that we saw what can happen when disinformation goes unchecked and is shared more widely. In the summer of 2024, mis- and disinformation about the tragic events in Southport led to the riots in the UK. So being able to spot fake news is important. When we think about how we act and react to news, we have to be able to rely on facts to help us make decisions. Making informed decisions, such as deciding whether to get vaccinated or who to vote for an election, they all depend on our access to information. The National Literacy Trust's report on fake news and critical literacy found that only 2% of children have the critical literacy skills they need to tell if a news story is real or fake, and half of all children are worried about being able to spot fake news. It also found that the existence of fake news makes them trust all news and media less. We need children to understand that not everything they read in the news, online or in the media is true, but we don't want them to just disengage from news altogether. And it's not just about fake news. We need to teach children the skills to critique and challenge news, media and online information. They should understand there's an author and intention behind every written article and see that news can be biased or even factually incorrect. Exploring where news comes from and how it's put together also helps pupils to judge whether information is trustworthy. Children can be empowered by learning about the issues of balance, representation in news, and finally, giving children the opportunity to become reporters themselves means they can demonstrate what good quality journalism should look like. And it has the added bonus of getting great writing outcomes too. It's worth noting that children in the primary age group are already online. Ofcom's 2024 report on children's media use and attitudes shows that 8 to 11-year-olds are increasingly having their own devices and social media profiles, and many of them are potentially unsupervised while they're online. You might even have experience of this with the children in your own class. We know that pupils are not supposed to have social media accounts at the primary age, but you also know that lots of them do. So if children are already there in the online world, and this age group are at the point of becoming independent in all sorts of ways, they need to be ready for when they have to lead truly independent digital lives. Critical literacy also crosses over with many of the curriculum objectives that must be taught in classrooms across the UK. In literacy, as pupils learn to assess whether a piece of information comes from a reliable and trustworthy source, they will develop the reading skills of inference and how to analyse the structure and language of texts. Managing online information is a key part of digital literacy as well across the UK, and all of this is relevant to the NewsWise resources and the critical literacy skills that are developed through them. If you're in England, teaching NewsWise lessons can help you to meet the internet safety objectives in the statutory RSE guidance. In the new Ofsted framework as well, critical literacy helps you to develop that personal development category 2. So all of these skills will overlap, which is truly why we are a cross-curricular offer.
Let's take a look at some ideas and activities for teaching pupils to critically navigate the news. We'll focus on what fake news is and why it exists, the skills and techniques you can use to spot it, and how to take a closer look at pictures and see how they contribute to misinformation. Let's begin with thinking about some of the types of content that children and adults may need to navigate and why this exists in the first place. Some terms you might hear when considering fake news include misinformation, which is factual inaccuracies that stem from error. No one meant to share it. Disinformation, which is deliberate falsehoods which are designed to deceive. And malinformation, factual information which is deliberately shared to cause harm to a person, organisation, or country. Fake news might exist for different reasons. Firstly, it might just be for entertainment. So satirical websites like the Daily Mash or the Onion, who knowingly publish made-up stories, but the intention is comedy rather than deliberately misleading people. However, this can still cause problems if people don't realise that a story began on a satirical site and they share it as if it's real. You might also see clickbait. This uses deliberately provocative headlines that hint at a major story. They're often posted on social media and they might end with something like, "What happened next will surprise you." These pique the interest of the reader, causing them to click on the link, and results in a hit for the website, which can be profitable. You also have deliberate propaganda. This is sharing information, often in a way that's biased or misleading, to promote a particular cause or point of view. The example here on the screen of Trump's conversation with the Mexican president amounts to a report on something he posted on social media, but Scheinbaum herself has given a different account of this conversation. Increasingly, news is spread via closed social networks, such as WhatsApp, and people don't always have access to the original source of the story or the context. And if social media users don't have the skills to question where a story's come from and run simple checks on a story, then fake news can spread quickly. We're going to demonstrate some of the activities used in our workshops and lesson resources that will teach your pupils the skills they need to think critically about the information they see online. All our lesson plans are free to access on the NewsWise website. First up is our fake or real quiz. In our workshops and fake news lessons, we usually show just the headline and a picture at first to get pupils' gut reaction, replicating people's reactions as they scroll through social media or what they might be sent on WhatsApp or similar platforms. So we're helping children to identify that this is not enough information to know whether something's real or fake. It also demonstrates that anybody can be tricked by fake news, reinforcing that we need to look in more detail at each example before making up our minds. So let's get your gut reaction to these 4 stories first. Then we'll look at some of the tools we can use to evaluate the information more closely. So what do you think of this story? Is Walt Disney about to become the first non-president on Mount Rushmore? Is it fake or real? Now, what about this story? Did a train get cancelled because squirrels were on board and refused to leave? Is this fake or real? Did California theme parks ban screaming on their roller coasters? Is this one fake or real? What about the mystery of a doctor who found a live goldfish in their garden? Is this one fake or real? Did you have enough information to know for certain if these stories were real or not? These are the tools that we use to help children approach news and information online critically. The NewsWise code and the NewsWise navigator. The code is stop, question, check, decide. That's stop before immediately sharing or believing something that's been posted online. Question where it's come from, what's the source. This involves finding out who originally shared it and evaluating whether they're a trustworthy source of news. Also, check the coverage. Amongst these checks might be finding out whether more than one source of news has reported on the story, and have you heard of them? And after these 3 steps, we should be in a better position to decide whether we believe what we see, whether we need to seek further information, or whether it should be called out as untrustworthy. So let's revisit our story about Walt Disney. And is he going to be included on Mount Rushmore? And let's question the source first of all. So we should be asking, who is the source? Who reported the story? Have you heard of them before? Is it somewhere that you trust? Does the webpage look professional? Does the URL look normal? Has the story been credited to a named journalist? Have they used a formal writing style and the correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation? Have they used photos that show the event with a caption and a credit? And thinking about all of those questions, you might have a better idea about whether something is real or fake. So, what do you now think of this story? Is it real or is it fake? This is a fake story. Mousetrap News isn't a trustworthy source of news. It's actually a website that posts fake news content related only to Disney, but for entertainment rather than to deliberately mislead. With that said, lots of fact checkers have had to publish stories debunking their jokes. You can see that this website does not look very professional. There are not the usual categories of news that we might expect to see on a reliable news website, and the story isn't credited to a named journalist. It's likely that your children won't know many reliable sources of news, nor will they know about fact checkers. So a resource like the one you can see on the screen can be useful for your pupils as they use the News Navigator. Let's look at the second story now. Gatwick train cancelled after squirrels bored and refused to leave. Do you think this is fake or real? Think about those clues we mentioned a moment ago. If we apply the clues we just mentioned, we can work out that this is a real story. We know that Sky News is a regulated, trustworthy source of news. There are strict rules that regulated news organisations have to follow. They have to post corrections and the journalists are all highly trained. They may occasionally make errors in their reporting, but they have to correct these. The sources of our examples of fake news are not regulated, which means they can publish whatever they want. Even if we're not sure of the source, we can see lots of the features of this web page make it look professional. Different categories of news at the top of the page, an image with a caption and proper accreditation. We can also see there are no spelling, grammar, or punctuation errors. Now going back to our News Navigator, our next step is to check the coverage. This is when we look at who else is reporting the story and whether it's being reported by more than one news organisation that you've heard of. Again, you might have to help children with additional vocabulary. A resource like this points out some of the words that might be clues that a story is not real. Let's look at the third story from our fake or real quiz earlier. California theme park bans screaming on roller coasters. To check the coverage, we've put some of the keywords from the headline into a search engine, and these are the results. Look at the search results. Do you think this story is real or fake? We can see some of the fake news clue words here, telling us that this is a fake story. 2 fact-checking services have identified this story as fake. I'm going to hand this next one over to you. If we look at this story, the mystery of a doctor who found a live goldfish in their garden, we can see that it's when we question the source that it looks trustworthy. You may have heard of the BBC before, and even if you haven't, it looks like a normal professional news website. We can also see that the reporter of this story has been named. So now we need to do an online search to see if any other news organisations that we've heard of are reporting this story. Pick out the keywords from this headline and type them into the search engine that you normally use. Most search engines also allow you to filter results to show just the news sources. You'll see this at the top of the page beneath your search terms. A learning moment here is asking your pupils what the key search terms they need to use would be. Asking what are the important elements of the story brings in the skill of summarising. You might want to pause this video briefly while you do this. Your search results should look something like this. We can see 6 different news organisations sharing this story, including Sky News and The Guardian, and they all seem to be reporting the same details. We can see that, therefore, this is a real story. Great job! You've qualified as fake news detectives. You may also have thought in the past that using real news stories in class can be challenging because you don't want pupils to be exposed to unsuitable content, especially when looking at examples of fake news. So, how can we do this in a safe and appropriate way? You'll have noticed that we've used a lot of screen grabs in this presentation, and that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, content on fake news websites changes all the time, and websites are often removed, which is a good thing, of course. Secondly, even if you find an age-appropriate example, the chances are that the content and adverts around it on a fake site won't be age-appropriate. So what we do is take screen grabs and use QR codes when sharing these stories and workshops, both for safety but also to help them feel more interactive. We use a QR app that allows you to link to an image rather than a web page. And you can also use it offline, so you can be sure that pupils are in a completely safe environment whilst allowing them to see authentic examples of fake news. You can try looking at these examples now. Both of the QR codes on the screen have screen grabs which help pupils to question the source of each of these stories. We also have lessons on fake news and its consequences, which are available for free on our website. There's one for 7 to 9-year-olds and another for 9 to 11-year-olds, and both of them allow pupils to do this work without them having to go online at all.
We often find that if there's a picture or a video with a news story, children and even adults are more likely to believe that it's real. This means that a picture or an image can be miscaptioned, meaning that it's given out of context with an alternative meaning sort of attached to it. This example here alleges, for example, that supporters of US President Joe Biden were burning a Christmas tree. A quick search points us to fact checkers who found out that this is actually a legitimate picture of a tree being burned, but it has nothing to do with Biden supporters. It was actually one person who was later arrested for arson. To illustrate this concept for children, you could try to add a caption to change the meaning of this photo, for example. So in the past, we've had suggestions like turtle highway installed to help ducks cross river. You can find any picture to try this, but it's important to have the conversation with your pupils about when it could be irresponsible or even dangerous to use a misleading caption with a picture. False perspective is another way that pictures can be used in misleading ways. This example of a bear's paw recently resurfaced on social media. It's not always extreme or deliberately faked examples such as this. There were pictures of crowded parks used in the media early on during the COVID lockdowns, but angles and perspective actually made people look closer together than they really were. In class, you could even try making your own forced perspective pictures, but it's important to show people how it's done. So we always insist that children take a real representative photograph as well, so they can demonstrate how pictures can actually be misleading. And when we talk to children about misleading images, we find that most of them have heard of Photoshop. It's the most common suggestion when we ask children how an image has been faked. A useful tool for checking this is to do a reverse image search. This can be done using tools like TinEye. This is how you would go about a reverse image search of this image, which was shared with the caption Meals on Wheels in Canada. First, you right-click on the image you want to check and select Copy Image Address. You can then navigate to the TinEye website where you can right-click and choose Paste. And the search results will come up looking like this. If you choose to sort the results by oldest, it will show the earliest entry that an image was found online. As you can see here, the original image was first shared over 10 years ago and was actually just a picture of the bear. The cyclist was edited into the picture later. It's really important that children don't do this on their own though. A reverse image search should only be demonstrated to children so that they're not directed to unsuitable content unintentionally. Increasingly, images made using generative AI are going viral and misleading people. This picture of the Pope in a puffer jacket in particular caught out many people. There are some tricks for spotting AI generated images, such as looking at the shape of hands and numbers of fingers. This example of a lady and her crochet cat is a good example. Some AI images can get the background details of a picture wrong. For example, this viral picture, which allegedly showed a village giant in the UK, has many blurred faces in the background, or faces which don't seem to be properly formed. You'll also notice that many AI generated images of people appear to have almost unblemished skin with a sort of unnatural sheen. However, generative AI tools are getting better at an incredible pace. This means that the most effective way to approach fake images generated by AI tools is to teach your children the critical literacy skills they need just to question them. We should help pupils to ask, what's the source of this image? What might be the intention in sharing it? And are there any trustworthy news sources sharing it, or has it appeared on any fact-checking websites? As with photoshopped images, doing a reverse image search can be a helpful tool as well. Again, remember this shouldn't be done without supervision. In the example of the Pope in the puffer jacket here, we can see the results include websites such as How to Spot AI Images, Sorry Folks, Pope's Pics in Swaggering Puffer Jacket and Shades is Not Real, it's AI fakery at its finest, and an opinion piece from The Guardian titled, I thought I was immune to being fooled online, then I saw the Pope in a coat. And when it comes to spotting misleading images, especially those that have gone viral, it can be really difficult. This is why we should always refer back to that NewsWise navigator from earlier. Let's take this example of a baby platypus picture, which was shared over 30,000 times. If we look at the source, this account appears to be a genuine knitting account. Most of their posts are about knitting and get a handful of likes and shares. So they seem to be who they say they are, but what do they know about platypuses? Well, if you do a reverse image search, you'll see that the first few articles seem to be saying that it's not real. If you click on the first one, you'll see an article from Science Alert saying that it's actually made from plastic. The article goes on to show the original source of the image and who took it. That's the artist who made it. But what if you've never heard of Science Alert before? Well, we can do some more investigation into the website itself and question whether they're a reliable source. Doing this, we can find out that they are a news website with transparent editorial values and a fact-checking system, and they actually encourage people to contact them if they spot any mistakes. The knitting account appears to have shared this image genuinely believing that it was a real photo of an actual baby platypus. Many of the people who shared, liked and commented agreed, but actually it's a small sculpture by a fantasy artist. It's a fairly benign example of misinformation and no one was deliberately trying to deceive, but this doesn't stop it from being incorrect. If the original poster had taken the time to stop, question and check before sharing, it would not have misled so many people. Throughout this video, we've mentioned a lot of our resources, and all of these are available absolutely free from our website. You can see the address on screen now, and the link is in the video description. At our website, you will also find the other training videos in this series.